Pokemon that have high usage in competitive are often the central threats of a metagame, the powerhouses that everything else needs to have a response to. But sometimes Pokemon with high usage aren't ones that cause problems, but ones that fix problems. They're not that inherently broken themselves, but they happen to just fit really well on teams as a response to all the other broken stuff. Sometimes players conflate usage with power, but that's not always the case. Reliable Pokemon that can just do a lot of stuff in one team slot are incredibly important for metagame health, and these are the kinds of Pokemon that hold everything together. Today, let's take a look at every generation of competitive singles and find the most reliable Pokemon in each. Pokemon that if you just threw them on every single one of your teams without thinking about it, no matter the pace or the archetype, you probably would not be too upset. But first, an interesting scenario. I have recently had some casual conversations with the controversial Pokemon criminal Iron Mugulis. After all that he's been through, Iron Mugulis has expressed the simple desire to transform into a new state of being. He wants to become a piece of Plush merchandise, just like his personal inspiration in life, Pokemon Center Muck Sitting Cuties Plush 5.5 inch. To make his dream a reality, I got in touch with a company called Makeship, who specializes in such services. Makeship has done various collaborations with YouTubers, designing wonderful plush figures for them. Fellow YouTuber and friend of the channel Shay TV recently worked with them on this delightful Undertale-inspired frog character. The creators of hit indie game Balatro also worked with them on this Joker plush, which is very cool too. If you'd like to see an Iron Mugulis plush be brought into existence, you can pledge your support to the campaign in the link below. If we receive 200 pledges within 10 days, the process will begin. Pledging costs $2 and it will act as a deposit for the final product, which will be $30 plus shipping. If the campaign is unsuccessful, you will just be refunded. In all seriousness, folks, I would love to see this silly little character I created become an actual piece of nice merchandise designed by people who know what they're doing, and I would appreciate your support on this. Thank you. For the Gen 1 competitive metagame, it's a little bit difficult to find a Pokemon that fits this description. A popular choice in the metagame that isn't necessarily broken, but is more of a response to other things, because in Gen 1 there's so few options in the actual game, and I wouldn't feel comfortable throwing Chansey or something on this list. I think that while Chansey is a powerful defensive Pokemon that can respond to many things and provides you with a lot of value, Chansey is also so strong that it is central in an almost broken sense. Instead, I think the Pokemon I would pick for this for Gen 1 is Cloyster. I've always felt that Cloyster was a really reliable choice in Gen 1 that helps significantly against Tauros and Snorlax because of your massive base defense. It can also help you get safe entry points because of Clamp. Clamp is a move that will prevent the enemy from acting, so you can clamp something and that opens up an opportunity to pivot out because they either have to stay in and not act or switch out. Both of these scenarios create a safe entry point for an ally. So Cloyster's providing that support and just dealing chip damage with Clamp too. You have Stab Blizzard, which is a nice way to just deal pretty good damage to enemies like Snorlax and Tauros that you're trying to defensively check or whatever else. Incoming Exeggutor, whatever it may be. And Explosion is also extremely useful, allowing you to trade with things. Cloyster just always feels like it gets some value when you use it in Gen 1. You can't go too wrong with a Cloyster, and I don't think it feels too broken or annoying to face either. Unlike Chansey, it's not healing infinitely and it's not absurdly difficult to actually get rid of. Cloyster has limited healing. It usually uses Rest, but it's not the best Rest user. Another nice thing about Cloyster is that it's an Ice type, meaning it's immune to Freeze, so it can be a bit of a freeze answer. Freeze spam is popular in Gen 1 because if you get frozen in Gen 1, you cannot thaw out. It's effectively a KO. But ice types are immune to freeze, so having some sort of ice type on your team always feels really nice. I'd give it to Cloyster for Gen 1. It's very popular in high level gameplay, but I think it's a fairly reliable and honest Pokemon, improving consistency, matching up well against the top threats, and just doing an all-around good job. In Gen 2, I think I would go with Golem. Golem is very popular in Gen 2 OU. This is the peak of its power, and I think it feels fantastic to use in this format. It's so reliable and so consistently solid. Golem is a good old bulky ground type. It has the utility of Rapid Spin to get rid of hazards. It's pretty effective against Snorlax, the tier's most popular Pokemon, because of its normal resistance granted by that rock typing. Snorlax can run things to hit golems, such as Surf or Earthquake, but you're actually taking Earthquakes pretty well with your high defense, and if they're running Surf, that's at least good info. It means they're lacking other important options, and the rest of your team can handle that. Golem will always do some sort of defensive job against important enemies. It can punish certain Raikou sets. They are vulnerable to getting Earthquaked, and Hidden Power Ice won't quite one-hit you. Plus, you can pivot in on Thunderbolt. Golem can even run mixed options like Fire Blast to hit enemies trying to wall it, like Skarmory or Forretress, and that's a lot of fun as well, in my opinion. Raw support is always nice to have in Gen 2 to just get rid of curse boosters. Not only is there Snorlax, but there's the occasional Skarmory running curse, and it's nice to just be able to get rid of that. Tyranitar sometimes runs curse. You can never go wrong with some raw support, spin support against the spikes. Gen 2 Golem is a fantastic Pokemon. I really wish that they didn't get rid of Rapid Spin on this. It makes perfect thematical sense for this to have it, and it was a great option on it. Huge nerf for no real reason. Unfortunate. Because Gen 2 Golem is such a delight to use. I would love to have this kind of Golem back in some form. Up next is Gen 3, where there is a very clear candidate, and it is Swampert. Swampert is, in my opinion, the most pure example of what I am talking about in this video. It is a incredibly popular Pokemon in high-level competitive play. It is extraordinarily solid in the format, but it's not really overwhelmingly powerful on its own merits. It's just a fantastic response to like 100 other things in the format, all at once. Swampert has the amazing water-ground type combination, one of the best in the game, with only one weakness to grass. And this is a cool typing because it gives it an inherent weak point, an inherent target point. Swampert never feels too overwhelming in the meta because you can always hit it with grass coverage. And it's not as if grass is a bad type elsewhere, it's hitting plenty of other things like Tyranitar and all the water types. Never feels like a waste to run grass coverage. So I think that is healthy, that it's so targetable in that sense. Its stats are good, but they're nothing extraordinary. It's just a solid stat distribution that gets the job done. And Swampert happens to be able to handle all the popular physical threats. Tyranitar with Dragon Dance or whatever other physical set, Aerodactyl, physical Salamence, physical Gyarados you can handle decently. Swampert's Water and Ground Stab hit a lot of things for respectable damage. It's never that much. You're doing like 30 to Blissey or something, maybe 40 something to Starmie. Those kinds of numbers, but it adds up. It's just nice little chip damage to get in there. Swampert poses just enough of a threat to be good in that sense. It also has limited health because it has no healing moves like Recover or Roost. It's just chip healing with leftovers. It does a good job at that, but you can wear Swampert down with spikes and stuff, but still, Swampert does a fantastic job as just a Swiss Army knife of defensive utility, handling all of the top Pokemon in one neat package. Metagross as well. I don't even think I mentioned Metagross. You're a great check to Metagross. I've said it before, folks, but I think this is what all defensive Pokemon should aspire to be like, because it feels so good to use, and it feels fine to play against too. This is the perfect balance, and it's a wonderful Pokemon in every regard. I absolutely love Swampert. Up next is Gen 4, and the Pokemon I've chosen for this one is Heatran. I have always loved Heatran. It's one of my favorite competitive Pokemon to use, and to play against, to be honest. It's another one of those Pokemon that just feels reasonable, and it always feels like it's a good addition to any metagame that's helping to keep things fun and balanced. Heatran is a Fire Steel type with the ability Flash Fire. It's a great combination, but at the same time, Heatran has plenty of weaknesses, like a ×4 ground weakness, a water weakness, and a fighting weakness. Heatran has powerful offensive stats with great special attack, good all-around bulk, but it's pretty slow, so it's very easy to threaten this thing. At the same time, it has good utility, it's threatening a lot of things, and it's checking a lot of things in Gen 4 that are really annoying, like Iron Head Jirachi, one of the most annoying Pokemon in history and a fantastic choice in Gen 4. Heatran has a ×4 resistance to Iron Head. So throw on a Heatran on your team, you're already getting a solid Pokemon. You're getting a Stealth Rock setter, a pretty good offensive threat. It's got Explosion to trade with things. It's not broken by any means, but it does a good job. And it's helping you out in one of the hardest matchups to deal with in the format. Heatran also helps against all of the Dragon types in Gen 4, and Dragon is at almost the peak of its power in Gen 4 with the physical special split coming into play and really strong Dragon moves like Outrage and Draco Meteor. Heatran makes your opponent second guess locking into Outrage because Heatran can really punish that. It's got enough bulk to withstand the massive power of that move and the resistance from steel typing as well. Heatran is also not rock weak. Rocks are everywhere in Gen 4. They feel like they have a stranglehold on that metagame, seriously, but Heatran doesn't take that much from Stealth Rock. It is a fire type that is neutral to rock, and that's a massive deal. You're also immune to Sandstorm and Sandstorms everywhere, so that feels great. Heatran just always feels good to use. Always. It helps against so many things. It provides so much value. And I think it's at a reasonable power level as well. I think without Heatran, Gen 4 OU might crumble. Without Heatran, I don't know if the generation will be as enjoyable. It's one of those Pokemon that really holds things together, and even though it's so common, you're never that upset to see it, and you're usually pleased to be using it. So Heatran's the clear candidate here for Gen 4, in my opinion. Now, Gen 5 is another tough one. Not because there's a lack of options, but because there's so many, and many of them are broken and annoying. Gen 5 is a format full of broken and annoying stuff. That's just how it is. But amidst all of that, I think that one Pokemon stands out for me. A Pokemon that can fit on just about any team style, any pace, and always feels reliable and solid, and that would be Garchomp. In a sense, you could call this a broken Pokemon in some ways. It's got fantastic stats. It's a pseudo-legend. Massive attack stat, good bulk, good typing, good ability. It's got a lot going for it. But at the same time, in a world like Gen 5, where consistency is so hard to achieve, Garchomp just always feels good to have on a team. It's a nice Stealth Rock setter. It has good defensive value. It's got a good speed tier to just threaten a lot of important things you need to threaten. And it also fits on a wide variety of teams. Even rain teams. You'd think Garchomp is a sand team staple, but not necessarily. Rain teams can run Aqua Tail Garchomp, which deals extra damage in rain, and Garchomp also helps provide you with a little bit of electric immunity, which is actually quite nice on a rain team where you're so vulnerable to electric type attacks. Garchomp crucially outruns enemy Thunderous Therian and threatens them pretty significantly, especially if you've got a Yachi Berry for security against HP Ice. At the same time, Garchomp feels pretty manageable by older archetypes that are popular. Pokemon like Skarmory, Landorus, Therian, etc. can easily check Garchomp. Garchomp is fairly customizable too, with mixed options to hit things like Ferrothorn with Fire Blast and Life Orb. Draco Meteor is also good. You have Swords Dance boosting sets. You've got Scarf Garchomp, which is a nice offensive check to things like Alakazam. Scarf Dual Chop is a way to get through Alakazam Focus Sash. I've always loved that one. But also it's Volcarona because you outrun them after a Quiver Dance. But Garchomp feels like a Pokemon that is often solving a lot of problems rather than causing them. In a world like Gen 5 where there's such broken Pokemon, Garchomp is not really at the top of that list. It's good, but it's not causing significant issues that are so hard to stop. It's pretty easy to wall it or check it in a pinch. It's not outputting such pressure, but it's often helping you out in unfortunate matchups or just providing consistency, which you sorely need in such a chaotic format. So I would give it to Garchomp here. It feels like it fits this description in my opinion. For Gen 6 overused, I would probably go with Excadrill here. I think Excadrill feels so consistent and solid in this format. Always nice to have on your team. It's got a great defensive typing for the meta, Ground, Steel. Plenty of immunities and resistances there. Crucially to Dragon and Fairy. You threaten Clefable and you check Clefable very well. Excadrill also has Rapid Spin for crucial hazard removal and support. Always imperative to have on your team. You have Mold Breaker to ignore abilities, so you can even set Stealth Rock or Toxic against enemies with Magic Bounce or other abilities that provide immunity to such things. You can Earthquake against Rotom Wash and the Lati Twins and other levitating Pokemon, which is always useful. Excadrill can be used defensively with Leftovers and Toxic and Protect and whatever to just enhance its longevity, or you can use it offensively. Decent amount of variety in how it can be used, and it just holds things together very well. This is the first time here that I've chosen the actual #1 ranked Pokemon in Gen 6. I found out pretty recently that Excadrill dethroned Clefable as the #1 Pokemon. But at the same time, I think of all the #1 Pokemon throughout the years, Excadrill doesn't feel too overwhelming itself. I mean, the Sandrush set can be good, but there's pretty easy ways to check it with Pokemon like Landorus Therian, Skarmory, Gliscor, Rotom Wash checks the Sandrush set. It doesn't feel super broken or anything. I think Excadrill feels fine, improves the format with its presence. It feels pretty balanced to me. And I like what it adds to this format. I like the way that it holds everything together like a glue. For Gen 7 OU, I think there's a clear answer, and it is Landorus Therian. And to be honest, Landorus Therian could also have been the choice for Gen 5 or 6. This Pokemon has existed since Gen 5, and it's been excellent in every generation that it's a part of. But I think it's at the peak of its usefulness and importance in Gen 7. In Gen 5, you can't necessarily throw Landorus Therian on every single team. It doesn't fit that well on rain teams. Hyper offense teams, you can use it, but there are better and more immediately threatening options there too. Gen 6, I actually think Excadrill is a little bit more useful than Landorus Therian and even Gliscor as a similar bulky ground type. But in Gen 7, Landorus Therian feels different. It feels like this is almost on every single team, and for good reason. This is one of the few things that can actually handle all of the nonsense in Gen 7 and just provide some sort of modicum of consistency. Gen 7 is a crazy format. It is an incredibly high power level format with the Tapus present, the Ultra Beasts, so many broken Pokemon with Z moves and ramping effects, Pokemon like Magiana and Ash Greninja that just go to the absolute moon, broken rain teams with Mega Swampert. Everything is out to get you in this format, and Landorus Therian is like Atlas holding the world on its shoulders. Landorus Therian feels like a soft check to so many different things. You can come in, you're immune to spikes, you're taking minimal from rocks because of your typing. You got such key resistances, and you intimidate them, lowering their attack. They're getting chipped by Rocky Helmet. Landorus Therian also pivots with U-turn. It sets rocks itself, so it can get rid of rocks with Defog. It can toxic things. It can Earthquake everything. It can HP Ice enemy Landorus and other things like Garchomp, Dragonite, whatever. It can exist on absolutely any kind of team. It can exist in many forms. Choice Scarf with HP investment is probably my favorite set, just because you have so much more bulk with the HP to check things consistently. And then Choice Scarf gives you a lot of initial momentum to get a fast pivot out there or just clean up with Earthquake in the end game or whatever. You can even throw utility options on Scarf sets like Defog and Stealth Rock. Scarf Defog is pretty good, in fact, to just get rid of hazards quickly. That was always great. Landorus Therian, many would argue that this is one of the broken Pokemon of Gen 7, but I think 90% of what this guy is doing is handling everything else and keeping the format together. And, you know, I mentioned before that if you got rid of Heatran, Gen 4 might crumble. I think truly, if you got rid of Landorus Therian from Gen 7, it would be pure chaos. Landorus Therian is seriously imperative to this format. And like I said, this is a Pokemon that's good in every gen it's in, but in Gen 7, it's truly a superhero keeping everything from turning into dust around itself. And for that, I would absolutely give Landorus Therian this title for Generation 7 OU. Up next is Generation 8, and I'm quite fond of Corviknight from this generation. A fantastic new addition that I think enhanced competitive, both in Gen 8 and Gen 9. Even though I did rank Gen 8 OU as my least favorite competitive format in my recent video about the topic, I think that Corviknight from Gen 8 is one of the better new additions to competitive we've seen recently. This is just a good competitive Pokemon that's not too broken, not too overwhelming or anything. It's just a good utility defensive guy that is a pretty nice counterpart to the space Skarmory used to fill. Corviknight is a steel flying type Pokemon, a fantastic typing. But unlike Skarmory, this Pokemon doesn't have any hazard setting moves or status inflicting moves like Toxic to take advantage of its defensive typing and make progress. Instead, it just has Defog to get rid of hazards and U-turn to pivot. And that's about it. It can heal, it can pivot, and it can get rid of hazards. And that's all it really needs to do. And Corviknight, its stats are solid. They're very solid, but they're nothing crazy. Corviknight strikes a good balance of being a manageable Pokemon to break through if you need to, but also one that always feels nice to have as a hazard remover, soft check to various things, or a direct wall to specific things, and a way to get your other Pokemon onto the field safely with U-turn. It's a simple Pokemon, it's nothing flashy, but I think we need Pokemon like this. These kinds of Pokemon are important, and Corviknight does a fantastic job in the role. In Gen 9, it's not quite as good as it was in Gen 8, because in Gen 9, Goldengo exists, who can block Defog, making Corviknight's job a little bit more difficult. But in Gen 8, you're always happy to have a Corviknight on your team. And in Generation 9 OU, I think that you would have to give it to Great Tusk. One of the most impactful and popular new additions to Gen 9 in the competitive singles world. Great Tusk is filling the shoes of many bulky ground-type utility Pokemon before it, with a good balance of utility and some offensive damage output. And sometimes offense is defense, with options like Ice Spinner, Headlong Rush, and Close Combat threatening key enemies like King Gambit, Gliscor, etc. Great Tusk defensively answers a lot of important Pokemon. It provides rapid spin support to get rid of hazards. It can set hazards itself. It has knockoff to remove items. It crucially checks King Gambit is at least a bit of a help against Raging Bolt and other such fellows like that. You're going to do pretty solid against most offensive physical attackers with your high defense. Great Tusk can sometimes be an overwhelming offensive threat, as well. Going a little bit against the ethos of what I'm saying here with the booster energy bulk up sets, but I think those sets are fine to manage as well. You can get big short-term value out of those, but they can peter out quickly and be easily walled or stopped by plenty of common Pokemon. So I don't think that's too overpowering. I mean, it's a very powerful Pokemon, it's got great stats, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like this is on the level of something such as King Gambit, which is exuding so much offensive pressure against everything that everything has to form around it like a sun with orbiting planets. Great Tusk is actually a response to other broken things. It's a utility machine. It's an easy Pokemon to throw into absolutely any team and it will do you well. Filling a similar role and filling the shoes of similar Pokemon before it like Excadrill in Generation 6, Landorus Therian in Gen 7. Now Great Tusk is the new one, and it's doing good work. And it feels a little bit distinct to those Pokemon, and it defines Gen 9. For the better, in my opinion. I think Great Tusk is overall a positive addition to the game that will always be there for you. It's always reliable. It's going to get value every single game, without a doubt. And it always feels fantastic to use. What do you think of my choices here, folks? Do you disagree with any of them? Do you actually dislike some of these Pokemon and think they're annoying? Would you have any different candidates for such a title? Let me know what those are in the comments. And of course, check out the Makeship campaign for the Iron Mugulis plush. I would love to see it happen. And of course, thank you for watching.